Then the living power answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare, if thou hast the understanding. Who determined the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who stretched the line upon it? Whereupon were the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of the living power shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea with doors, when it broke forth and issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it, and prescribed for it my decree, and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days began, and caused the dayspring to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed as clay under the seal, and they stand as a garment. But from the wicked their light is withholden, and the high arm is broken. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed unto thee, or hast thou seen the gates of the shadow of death? Hast thou surveyed unto the breadths of the earth? Declare, if thou knowest it all. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof. Thou knowest it, for thou wast then born, and the number of thy days is great. Hast thou entered the treasuries of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasuries of the hail, which I reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? By what way is the light parted, or the east wind scattered upon the earth? Who hath a cleft, a channel for the water flood, or a way for the lightning of the thunder? To cause it to rain on a land where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth. Hath the rain a father, or who hath begotten the drops of dew? Out of whose womb came the ice, and the hoar-frost of heaven? Who hath gendered it? The waters are congealed like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Canst thou bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou lead forth the Mazarah in their season, or canst thou guide the bear with her sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heavens? Canst thou establish the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send forth lightnings, that they may go, and say unto thee, Here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the mind? Who can number the clouds by wisdom, or who can pour out the bottles of heaven? When the dust runneth into a mass, and the clods cleave fast together, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lioness, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens, and abide in the covert to lie in wait? Who provideth for the raven his prey, when his young ones cry unto the living power, and wander? Grain from Egypt, embroidery, glass, and metalwork from the Levant's teeming cities. The Levant's teeming cities. Gems from the Indies, embroidery from Egypt. Few remain economic centers. Trade tended to pass into the hands of the Levantines, who could move into an area and out again without having to share its misfortunes. We're talking Levantines, the Levant. Levant meaning rising in Italian, as in the place where sun rises, they say. In Hebrew, the word for east is Mizrachi, which is also where the sun rises. Canst thou bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion, saith the Most High? Canst thou lead forth the Mazarah in their season, or canst thou guide the bear with her sons? We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. We're just following the drinking gourd. Nothing more, nothing less. Canst thou lead forth the Mazarah in their season, saith the Most High. We're just following the drinking gourd. It's right in your face. I can't make this up. The Big Dipper leads to the Little Dipper. Coiled in between the two is the constellation Draco, Polaris being the north guiding star, if not the most important star in the night sky. The Mazarah. Canst thou lead the Mazarah in their season, saith the Most High? Mazarah, some noted constellation, or the zodiac. Mizrach, or sunrise. Mizrachi, the east, they say. Sunrise. Mizrach, the east, or rising of the sun. Zarak, a rising of light. Zarak, Zarakya. Yah has risen. Zarakya, Mizrak, Mizraki. Zarakya, Yah has risen, rising of light. Follow me on it. We're talking rising of light. There's only the Most High running things. Check it out. We're talking Enoch, the book of Enoch. For since his shining crown is with the living power. Let's run that back. Shout out to the 9 for putting us on the Enoch 400 angels drop. Thus he goes back once again to the eastern gates under the earth. We're talking the sun. Rising of light. And when he goes out from the western gates, he takes off his light, the splendor which is his radiance, and 400 angels take his crown and carry it to the living power. For since his shining crown is with the power of the armies of Israel, with 400 angels guarding it, the sun turns his chariot around and goes back under the earth on wheels, without the great light which is his great radiance and ornament. We're talking about the crown of the sun. The shining crown is with the living power, with 400 angels guarding it. The Most High controls the left hand and the right hand side. There is none other, and he remains for 7 great hours and night, and the chariot spends half its time under the earth. And when he comes to the eastern approaches, in the 8th hour of the night, the angels, the 400 angels, bring back the crown and crown him. By the Most High's command, the 400 angels bring back the crown and crown him, and his brightness and the shining of his crown are seen before the sunrise, and the sun blazes out more than fire does. We're talking Rakia, the firmament. The sun enters through the western portal. It travels along the firmament, reaches its peak, enters into the eastern portal, heads back underground for 8 hours, and then comes back again, all by the command of the Most High and the 400 angels guarding it. Shimroth, or guardship. We're talking guardians of the doors of Israel. Shimroth, guardship. Shamash, or daylight, to serve or minister to the Most High. Shemesh, to be brilliant. The sun, we're talking the 400 angels who crown the sun each and every day by the Most High's command to be brilliant. A ray or arc, a notched battlement. We're talking windows or gates in which the sun enters and exits, guided by the 400 angels, by the command of the Most Highest of Hosts, Shemesh. Shemesh meaning the sun. Shimshan, or sunlight. We're talking about the house of the sun, O Jacob, a notched battlement. We're talking a crown here. Crown, a notched battlement, a defensive wall or building with gaps, like you see on castles. We're talking crowns. Shamarya, Shamaryahu, Yah has guarded. We're talking guardians of the doors of Israel, with 400 angels guarding it, crowning the sun, and removing the crown at night, and recrowning the sun, all by the command of the Most High. Yah has guarded. Shamaryahu, Shamarya, Beth Hashimshi, Beth Hashimshi, a Beth Shemshite, or inhabitant of Beth Shemesh. We're talking house of the sun, O Jacob. We're talking about you, O Beth Shemesh, house of the sun. What is leavened in the Bible, they say? In the Old Testament, during that time, the leaven was made up of different kingdoms, O Jacob. The kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Ammon, and the kingdom of Moab, they say. We're talking the Moab, the Moors, and the Israelites. Are you following me? It had to overcome competition from Oriental mystery cults and the worship of Sybil and other popular cults. Let's get into it. We're about to talk about the cult of St. James and the conquistadors, which held out salvation to initiates through esoteric rites. The blood of the martyrs, in quote, was the seed of the church. Constantine's conversion brought official recognition in 313, and Theodosius' edicts in 391, they say, made Christianity the sole legal religion. Now pagan rites were prohibited. By the order of Constantine and Theodosius' edicts, Christianity became the sole legal religion. We're talking guardians of the doors of Israel. Beth Shemesh, house of the sun. Constantine and Theodosius' edicts have no say-so in this matter. The growth of heretical sects within the Christian communities remained a vital concern, for these disputed the very doctrines upon which the faith was based and challenged the unity of ecclesiastical authority. By the end of the 4th century, it seemed everyone had become his own theologian. A Saint Gregory of Nyssa wrote in despair and amusement, and amusement at the people of Constantinople, whose preoccupation with the Trinity equaled their addiction to chariot racing. For you shall have only one power, O Jacob. Syria, Palestine, Persia, and Egypt, armies of the prophet Omar, they say, swept westward through North Africa, conquered Spain, even pressed into France. Soon Christianity and Islam faced each other the length of the Mediterranean. In Spain, the Christians would fight for generations against the Moors, and finally expel them in the year of Columbus's first voyage to America. We're just talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham in America. If you follow the timeline, it all leads to you, O Jacob. The Franks all but wiped out the Avars. Where once stood the palace of the Avars' Khakan, or Khan of Khans, there is not so much as a trace of human habitation. So allegedly the Franks wiped out the Avars, who were the original Khakan, Khan of Khans. 15 wagons, each drawn by 4 oxen, hauled the Khakan's treasures to Charlemagne. The Khakan, or the Avars' Khakan, formed an empire centuries before Genghis Khan, they say. The Avars were the scions of an ancient tribal empire that spanned modern-day Mongolia, they say. We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. And with that, Charlemagne thrived in the genial society of his scholars, who dubbed him King David and flattered him as a new Cicero. We're talking nicknames. Bestowed on each other, nicknames derived from the great figures of antiquity, O Jacob. The Franks are taking your name, O Jacob. In the midst, David presides with scepter, dealing out mighty portions. As much as they want to be David, for Charlemagne, it is but a nickname. It was common practice for the Carolingian court to give one another personal nicknames. These nicknames are also used in the literary and artistic productions of the time. Most notably, Charlemagne himself is called David by nicknames. O Jacob, they not like us. Within little more than a century after his death, Charlemagne's line disappeared. He ain't like that. Legends and quests for the ideal of a Holy Roman Empire ensued. Emperor Frederick Barbarossa proclaimed Charlemagne a saint. Only Charlemagne created that single society, that Christian empire at once so mighty and so fragile. For even the stones of empire, churches, monasteries, towns, would crumble. Out of the north swept death and destruction. The Christians of a shattered holy empire huddled in their churches and prayed, "From the fury of the Northmen deliver us, O living power." So with all of Charlemagne's treasures and nicknames, his line all but disappeared. They not like that. Churches, monasteries, towns would crumble. 3 6th century kings lie in a huge man-made mound at Gamla, or Old Uppsala, the royal seat of pagan Sweden, they say. I saw children slamming down the snow-mantled mounds in red and yellow sleds. We're talking mound towns in Gamla, Uppsala, in Sweden. Mound towns. Are you following me? Are you tracking? The fury of the Northmen. Neither snow nor frolicking children can soften the stark, heathen grandeur of these tombs, they say. Anything labeled pagan or heathen by the so-called Holy Roman Emperor is nothing but what's opposite of the Catholic Church. Near the royal mortuary, I entered a grove surrounding old Uppsala, a remnant of a 12th century cathedral built on the ruins of a pagan shrine. So, if it was a pagan shrine, why would you build a cathedral on top of it? Unless it has somewhat of a significance to the land on which it was upon. Inside had reigned Thor, mightiest of the gods with a little g, they say. Gamla Uppsala, seen from the grave field whose larger mounds to the left are close to the royal mounds. The building beyond the mounds is the church, and to its right is the Loting Mound and then Gamla Uppsala Museum. We're talking mound towns. Norse marauders wreak mayhem. Scorning the cross, pagans hack holy men to death, defile sanctuaries, rob golden objects that made churches the treasuries of medieval Europe. So according to the Church and the Holy Roman Empire, these Norse marauders were pagans or heathens because they opposed the church and robbed the church of their treasuries in medieval Europe. St. Patrick had carried Christianity to Erin in the 5th century. In time, Celtic outposts of piety and learning stretched from Iceland to the Danube. So there's a major conflict between the Norsemen, the Northmen, and the so-called Holy Roman Empire. The Swedes thrust across the Baltic, they say, toward the wondrous marts of Baghdad and Byzantium. As they advanced, they founded such cities as Smolensk and Chernigov. The energetic Swedes, they say, swiftly gained supremacy over the native people, and in their principal northern trading center, Novgorod, which they called Homegard, their leaders ruled as princes. Contemporary documents refer to these merchant traders as the Rus, probably from the Finnish word for Sweden, Ruotsi, they say, or rowing way. Eventually they gave their name to the entire country, Russia or Russia, Ruotsi, the Rus and Rus. On his longship, Dragon, Harold bore his banner, Land Waster. The thunderbolt of the North turned his gaze on the greatest prize of all. England, where Earl Harold Godwinson had seized the crown, and William of Normandy laid claim to the throne, but so did Harold of Norway. And in the autumn of that year, within the space of 3 weeks, Harold Hardrada, the archetypal Viking, they say, and Harold Godwinson, himself of half Viking ancestry, and William, descendant of Vikings, fought 2 climactic battles that determined the fate not only of England, but of all Europe. We're talking major conflict here. And at the end of this conflict, who do they find? Oh, Jacob. Norse Dreki and Old English Draka, meaning dragon, sea serpent or sea monster, or in Hebrew, Tannin or Tanin, the Proto-Germanic Draco, and early borrowing from the Latin Draco, huge serpent or dragon. A group of stars in the northern sky between the Big and Dipper and the Little Dipper. We're talking about the dragon coil between the two. Canst thou lead the bear and her sons, saith the Most High. The Greek word drakon, which means dragon. Draco is circumpolar from northern latitudes, meaning it's visible year round. It is fixed. We are fixed in position here on Earth. It is a circumpolar constellation, meaning it does not move or change. We are fixed, O Jacob. And by the Most High's command and the 400 angels, the sun is brought back day in and day out by the Most High's command. The constellations Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Draco, Ursa Major, and Ursa Minor are found circling Polaris. Circling Polaris, the whole sky is dancing around Polaris. You're fixed, O Jacob. Dancing around Polaris. We are just following the drinking gourd here. There were now 3 contenders for his crown: William, Harold Godwinson, and King Harald Hardrada of Norway, whose ambitions symbolized the ties which had bound Normandy. Momentous questions these, and men did well to ponder the celestial meaning of the star with hair, which suddenly appeared and shone for 7 days with an exceeding brightness. It was Halley's Comet. Come on now, I cannot make this up. According to one chronicler, many thought that this portended a great change in some kingdom. They were right. On the very day of Edward's burial, Harold Godwinson was crowned king. It was Halley's Comet, a star with hair. Harold's day grew out of invasions by Germanic tribes from the North Sea coast after Rome's legions abandoned Britain. Called Saxons for their short swords, Seax, these mercenaries and raiders became settlers. We're talking coloni. These mercenaries and raiders became settlers. Briefly, they were checked in the west by a Celtic chieftain, later romanticized in legend as King Arthur. Again, I cannot make this up. The so-called coloni, or mercenary and raiders, became settlers. For a time, they were briefly checked in the west by a Celtic chieftain, later romanticized in legend as King Arthur. Yet, Germanic deities would live on in our days. Tuesday, Woden or Wednesday, Thor or Thursday, and Frigg for Friday. You tell me why the days of the week are named after Germanic deities. I'll wait. Leave a note in the comments. Smashing their shining swords, their bloody hammer-forged blades onto boar-headed helmets, slashing and stabbing with the sharpest of points, for this was the warrior society of Beowulf. Loyalty to kin in chief, yet Germanic deities would live on in our days. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. The Germanic and Norse people also adopted the 7-day week. They didn't create it, they adopted it, and then named days after deities. And the Old English Tuesdag, which means Tuesday. In the Interpretario Germanica, 2 was associated with Mars, and the name Tuesday is a translation of the Latin dies Martis. Similarly, the name Friday comes from the Old English Frigdag, which means the day of Frigg. Frigga was the Norse goddess of fertility and was associated with the Roman goddess Venus. Again, adopted the 7-day week. Pilgrims for 1,000 years have hymned Spain's patron, whose shrine rivaled Rome and Jerusalem as Christendom's greatest. Rocamadour, the author, lights a starry taper. Faith recalls the star that led 9th century diggers to the apostles' remains. And his vision led Christian armies against the Moors. In time, 500,000 pilgrims each year to Compostela, among them the 11th century Spanish hero El Cid. We're talking massive cathedral constructions here. Santiago de Compostela, a so-called pilgrimage of the Catholics to Spain, the Holy Roman Empire. Check it out. Santiago de Compostela. Upon landing, the disciples were received near this cafe, by a lady named Lupa, a sort of local queen, who allowed them to bury St. James and mark his grave. Then there is a gap of 800 years. Presently, within another 300 years, the cathedral as we now see it was begun. All the pious people of a devout age thronged the road to Santiago, and Spaniards still referred to the galaxy, your Milky Way, as El Camino de Santiago. Three main goals, he continues, drew medieval pilgrims: the Holy Land, a long, arduous, expensive, and dangerous expedition; Rome, a powerful magnet, but perhaps lacking in mystery; and Santiago de Compostela, not as far as Jerusalem and being at the end of Europe, but more romantic than Rome. Let me know what that means. Leave a note in the comments. Mankind has thought of nothing important that it has not written in stone. Brooding malevolently, they line the gallery along the facade of Notre Dame. Scores of a grotesque, part beast, part bird, part hideously human. They were driven out of the cathedral, says legend. Though these are copies replacing time-ravaged originals, they show the skill and whimsy that sculptors brought to church ornaments. Gargoyles, they say, are transmuted rain spouts, and in the figures that step from columns flanking the portals of Chartres Cathedral, they achieved a grace and nobility that speak to us across the centuries. In their carved catechisms, sculptors followed rigid rules. Check this out. Sculptors or masons follow rigid rules. God, angels, and the apostles are to go barefoot. Other saints are shod. St. Paul must be bald and long-bearded. St. Peter always wears a tonsure, curly hair, and short beard. The Christ child must lie on an altar. Are you following? Sculptors and masons follow rigid rules. They have to paint the picture for you, or what they want the picture to look like for you. Oh, Jacob, we're talking massive cathedral structures in the middle of this city, surrounded by little buildings. In the crucifixion, Mary appears to the right of the cross, St. John to the left. A scene depicting the resurrection always shows Jesus emerging from an open tomb, cross in hand. The cathedral's north portal, facing a region of gloom and cold, generally portrays the Old Testament. The south portal, warmed by sunlight, presents the new. Often on the western facade, facing the setting sun, the Last Judgment unfolds. Again, they're trying to paint a picture for you. Conceived by clerics, such mute dramas were the work of imageurs, or image makers, man. For you shall have no powers before me. We're talking imageurs, image makers. These men rose from the rank of masons. All had served 7-year apprenticeships and belonged to a mason's lodge. Here they kept their tools. We're talking image makers, imageurs, who are given the task to paint a picture for you, oh Jacob. A symbolic pair of gloves revealed that the master builder, architect, and construction supervisor of the Middle Ages. He's supervising. He might be given a house to live in, some land, and a pension. His achievement strikes wonder, they say. Here we see the massive gate of Santa Maria, adorned by figures of the Virgin heroes and Emperor Carlos V or Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor Carlos V. Founded in the 9th century as a bastion against the Moors, it flourished as a pilgrim center and capital of kings of Castile and Leon. Nearby was born Spain's national hero, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, or El Cid, from city, meaning Arabic for Lord. He lies in the cathedral near a crucifix, so realistic that awed pilgrims said it sweated and bled. Check this out. Just when you thought it was getting good. Bedlam breaks loose in Pamplona during the Fiesta of San Fermin. Youths brave horns and hoofs, crowds jostle gigantes, giant effigies of Moors, Indians, and royalty. So this is what they doing in Spain, y'all. We're talking Fiesta of San Fermin. Crowds jostle gigantes, giant effigies of Moors and Indios. Royalty. Moors and Indios. This is what they own in Spain, y'all. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comment. Moors and Indios. They know who you are, oh Jacob. Moors and Indios. This is what they own in Spain, y'all. The procession of giants and big heads has been present in all the important celebrations in Pamplona since the 16th century. Since they came and found you, oh Jacob. I can't make this up. 6 giants kept in the Cathedral of Pamplona. 4 pairs of giants, a king and a queen for each of the continents. America, oh Jacob, Africa, Europe, and Asia. They consist of 8 figures created in 1860 by Tadeo Amarena and represent 4 pairs of kings and queens. America, Africa, Europe, and Asia, oh Jacob. This is where they keep the gigantes, the Indios, and the Moors, under this cathedral. Again, cathedral complexes crafted by these so-called masons or imageurs. Imageurs. Candles cast a flickering blessing on an altar to St. James at Matamoros. St. James as Matamoros, or the Moor Slayer. So whoever this St. James is, they put him on a pedestal, and the conquistadors brought the cult of St. James over here to America after they defeated the Moorish armies in Spain. Let me know what you think on that. Leave a note in the comments. St. James, or the Moor Slayer, his cult was taken to the Americas by the conquistadores, a powerful intercessor considered as a great magician. The Order of Santiago, the Christian military religious order of knights, founded for the purpose of fighting Spanish Muslims and of protecting pilgrims on their way to the shrine of St. James in Santiago de Compostela. The way of St. James. What does this really mean, oh Jacob? His cult was taken to the Americas. They came and found you here. Santiago, or St. James. If this ain't idolatry, I don't know what is. Santiago receives the traditional embrace from behind as a pilgrim. Precious stones stud the image. We're talking image makers here. Precious stones stud the image. An altar of alabaster, jasper, and silver has encased it since 1672. Below lies the fair vaulted sepulchre, where said the codex. The air is kept with sweet, divine odors. Imageurs. Idolaters. Teutonic knights pushed east, settling German Christians on Slavic soil. Other crusaders won fame and indulgences in the reconquest of Spain, or Reconquista, and Portugal from the Moors. Alfonso VIII wedded to Richard's sister Eleanor and won a great victory at Las Navas de Tolosa, heralding the confinement of the Moors to Granada, then final defeat in 1492 when they came and found you, O Jacob. King Alfonso VIII of Castile unites Christians against Moors. And then they come find you, O Jacob. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. In 1450, it was already set in motion. Johann Gutenberg, using movable type, prints the Bible at Mainz in 1456. 49 of these original Gutenberg Bibles were said to have survived into the 20th century, and 21 of these are complete. Of the 35 vellum copies, only 3 exist as complete copies. The library's copy is one of those 3. So of this book, which was translated and put onto paper in movable type by Johann Gutenberg, of those 49 Bibles, only 3 exist, and 1 is contained by the Library of Congress, O Jacob. We're just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek.